hand over now to Des to start this webinar.
Righto. Can everyone hear me all okay? Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. My name's Des. As Kate said, I'm the chair of the Redlands Regional Job Committee. So that's a volunteer role that I hold. And Kate's our project manager. She's our driving force of our Redlands Jobs Committee, as you've all worked with her. We're very, very excited about today's webinar. Thank you to all our presenters that have given up your time and been keen and eager to be involved in today's discussion. And thank you for those of you that are starting to join us. I'm not going to talk too long to start with because we want to get into what today's about. But just quickly, the Redlands Jobs Committee is a state government funded committee. Like I said, made up of 12 volunteers and myself as the chair. And we're hosted by the Redlands Chamber of Commerce. So we're not an entity on our own, but the Chamber of Commerce applied for the government funding for a 2-year term, and then we're formed through that. But we have been going for 6 years, and there's 12 regional job committees throughout Queensland doing the work that we're doing. So I've been in the chair role. This is sort of my second term, and our contract runs through for another 12 months at this point. And our brief that we've been given by the state government is to work with industry, work with employers to create job outcomes. That's what the state government want to see, working together. So we're very excited about today's webinar, which is solving workforce shortages through migration. I know it's something Kate and I have been talking about for a while. So again, we're really happy that you've all joined us to help get the knowledge out there in this space. So this is our fourth webinar. So just quickly on our website, we have the first three were recruiting in a tight labour market. We did that back in May. We launched in June. We talked about our recruitment tool. So the Redlands Jobs Committee has our own Redlands Coast Jobs Hub, which is absolutely free for employers to post jobs on, and also candidates can upload their CV. So Kate has talked us through that. There's a whole webinar on that. And then webinar 3 just last month was unlocking hidden talent, youth, mature workers and local workforce pipelines. So, and the exciting thing for Kate and I is we've been seeing our webinars grow, the numbers attending growing since we started in May. So that's just a little bit about the RJC and what we do. So I'm going to hand over to Kate now, and then I'll come back in later to help facilitate some panel discussions. But Kate's going to introduce the topic and our speakers as they come on today. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Des. So as Des said, webinar series is one of the elements of what the Regional Jobs Committee does. We have quite an extensive remit and a big action plan. And one of those elements is about providing education to employers in our region about different workforce cohorts and solutions to fill their workforce gaps, particularly the difficult roles and gaps to fill. So today's theme of migration is one element of how employers can fill workforce gaps. And we've got some fantastic speakers who are about to give you some in-depth insights into the different ways that employers can connect with migrant community, skilled migrants, even refugees. There's a whole cohort of information you're about to all receive, and I'm very excited to hear it. So just wanted to quickly explain why. Why have we got a migration focus? I must admit, in all honesty, I did not realise how prevalent the Redlands community has overborn seas community members. So the data that I'm presenting is actually from the last census, so it is 5 years old, and we won't get the updated data until about 12 months from now when the current census of last week data comes in. But from the census data 5 years ago, 23% of the Redlands community were born overseas. So that's 1 in 4 people were born overseas. So it is a significant number of people who are born overseas that are currently living in the Redlands and contributing to our workforce, our economy, our community, all sorts of things. So a lot of the time, people think when we're talking to them that we don't have a large migrant community in the Redlands and we don't need to do anything specific or targeted or be creative in how we're connecting migrant community into work. But the reality is you're missing a quarter of the population if, as an employer, you're not looking at that as a cohort and having a dedicated, thought out plan of how to connect to migrant workforce. So that's kind of how the webinar topic came about. And I will now hand over to our fantastic presenters. I'll quickly introduce each of them and then and let you all introduce yourselves formally as you commence your sections. So you've met Des, our fantastic chairperson. Our next presenter we will have is two presenters who will be jointly presenting. They're from Trade and Investment Queensland. We've got George and Susan. George is the program manager and Susan is the senior talent and employment officer. Just want to quickly wave or say hello.
Hello.
Yep, we've got George. Excellent. And then after that, we've got from Settlement Services International, and they will explain who they are and what they do. We've got Saba Hamid, who is the Community Relations Manager, and Abel Asmaron, apologies if I said your surname wrong, sorry, Abel. And he is the Refugee and Disability Community Advocate for Inclusive Workforce Australia, refugee specific team. So thank you very much to all of our presenters for joining today. And I will now hand over to our first presenter, which will be George from Migration Queensland, Trade and Investment Queensland.
Thanks, Kate. Pleasure to be here. I'll just get my slides up. One second.
Sorry, George, just whilst you're doing that, I think it might be better if it's possible for you to unmute and Susan to mute because it's a little muffled from the current microphone.
There we go. How's that?
Thank you.
My volume on. So. Okay, just sharing. I think if you just turn the volume off. Thanks for
Sorry, I think George is frozen. He's still logged in. He hasn't dropped out, but I think he's frozen for a moment. Are you back there, George?
He's on mute.
Yep, you're on mute. Or if that's not working, we'll go with Susan's microphone.
I think I'm okay now. How's that?
Yep, that's great.
Cool. So yeah, I was just saying, I'm looking forward to giving a bit of an overview of skilled migration, help demystify the visa system, and just discuss some of the migrant cohorts and international talent that we do have here in Queensland. So firstly, just want to begin by acknowledging the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first Australians. We recognise their cultures, histories and diversity and their deep connection to the lands, waters and seas of Queensland and the Torres Strait Islands. We pay our respects to the elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. So if people wouldn't mind, we have a quick QR code that has 4 really simple questions. And we just want to get a sense of people's sort of knowledge or understanding of different migrant cohorts. So just indicating from a scale of 1 to 10 how their understanding is. This is just really important for us, I guess, to help understand what type of activities are needed to meet employees and industry needs in terms of helping them understand skilled migration. So I'll just leave the QR code for another couple of seconds. Should be quite simple just to get up on your phone. Thank you.
Sorry, George, I don't know about others, but I can't see the QR code.
Sorry.
I think you need to share screen.
Is that not sharing?
No, not sharing at the moment, George.
Or in the chat?
I think the recording stopped the sharing. One sec.
Can you share it in the chat?
Yeah, will do. There we go. You should have a QR code on the screen there now.
Yes,
Apologies.
thank you.
Okay, so very quickly, who Migration Queensland is. We're a team within Trade Investment Queensland. And myself, I'm specifically part of a sub-team called the Skilled Workforce Attraction Office. And we're established to help educate employers, industry, and even government stakeholders on very skilled migration pathways. And this became a priority emerging from the COVID-19 pandemic, when we experienced a very tight labour market and widespread skilled shortages. So to begin with, who is our international talent? So Queensland's international talent pool is diverse, and we can sort of categorise it in these three ways. So we have international students, people who've studied or are studying here in Queensland. They may have graduated and gone on to hold a visa post-graduation. We also have other temporary visa holders. The main cohorts in this group are working holiday makers and New Zealand citizens, although their visa allows them to stay indefinitely. And then finally, we have people that already hold permanent residency, and they could have obtained that either through skilled, family, or humanitarian visas. So international students are a significant part of this talent pool. Many of them are studying and have the existing qualifications or experience that can help fill some of the skills gaps that we know that are impacting various industries. They often bring up-to-date knowledge, local education, and are highly motivated to build their careers here. And they're an important pipeline of emerging talent for future workforce needs that are difficult to fill locally. As mentioned, temporary visa holders, including working holiday makers in New Zealand, they're typically flexible, mobile, and they contribute across a range of industries. And they also help meet short-term and seasonal demand. So employers may come across backpackers who are committed to building a career in the jobs on offer and living in regional areas. So a quick snapshot to understand international students in the state. So there's over 90,000 students studying in Queensland. And when we break that down, now the tables, they reflect enrolments, which aren't individuals, but this is the best way we can sort of look at what international students are doing. So one student may be enrolled in various courses. However, we can see that half of international students are enrolled in higher education, then around a third are in vocational education and training. So they're studying, as I mentioned, studying really important qualifications. And when we look at the field of education, we can see areas where we understand, it can be challenging to find skilled workers. For example, engineering, architecture and building, which covers construction, then food, hospitality, and personal services, just some examples there. Okay, so what happens after a student has completed their study in the state? So once they've completed an eligible qualification, international students can apply for a temporary graduate visa. So there are a few things they need to meet to qualify for that visa. And that includes being under 35 years of age, unless they're studying a master's or master's by research or PhD. And then there are exemptions also for Hong Kong or British national overseas passport holders. There is a minimum English proficiency for the visa, and that's now essentially the same as it is to get a skilled visa. So people who hold a graduate visa, they can speak university level English, and it's deemed, the appropriate amount for permanent skill migration to Australia as well. So I guess employees can have confidence that they have passed English proficiency tests, and they must have studied at least 2 academic years in order to qualify for a graduate visa. Now, if you want to check when recruiting what people's work rights are on their visa, there is a really simple system the Department of Home Affairs have set up. It's called Visa Entitlement Verification Online. I'll give you the details later. But I guess our key message is when recruiting, we know that often this cohort is filtered out or can be filtered out of recruitment because they don't hold permanent residency. So we want to sort of help debunk or explain some of the perhaps hesitations employers have around these people that hold temporary visas. So a key question is, how long can they stay? So the maximum length of stay, including extensions that they can apply for, varies depending on where they studied. So regional areas, they have more incentive because they provide longer, potentially longer lengths of stay via extensions. But people who've studied in Brisbane, if they've done a vocational education and training qualification in an area related to skills Australia needs, and that is quite broad. It covers a range of fields, including health, hospitality and tourism, engineering, construction, agribusiness, for example, but several others. It's actually around 40% of all enrollments. They can stay for 18 months and they have full work rights on that visa for that period. When we get to higher education, it is a bit more, so 2 years, and then 3 years for graduates with masters by research or PhDs. And as you can see, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, that is a bit higher in higher ed, and then even higher again, all other areas in Queensland.
Sorry, George, quick question. Would the Redlands be classed as Brisbane or other regional?
Brisbane.
Brisbane, yeah, sure.
Yeah, look, it is postcode, dependent by postcode, and it's a very ad hoc system. So this is sort of a general indication, but there might be some slight sort of nuances to it, but in general, it'd be Brisbane.
Great, thank you.
That's okay. So look, I guess the key messaging that we have to employers is international graduates are really worth considering, especially when, we often have employers advising us around, the workforce challenges that they're facing. So key points are they're highly motivated to build their careers here in Australia post-study. Their visa allows them to work unrestricted. They can work in any job, full-time work rights, and there's no obligations or costs if you hire someone that holds this visa. So as we saw previously, they can have several years of full-time work before their visa expires. So essentially, by considering this cohort, employers can open up the pool of candidates potentially available to them, increasing their chances of finding the right employee for the job. Secondly, working holiday makers, also just worth touching on. So it is a visa intended for work and travel in Australia, based around cultural exchange with other countries. So people initially get a 1-year visa, can live and work across the country, essentially do whatever they like. But they can extend that stay. So to do that, there is specified work that they need to undertake. So 88 days in an eligible regional area to get a second year, or then 179 days, around 6 months, to get a third year. But there are exceptions, and these are important to point out as many employers don't necessarily aren't aware of this. So work that occurs at different locations, an employer can employ them for longer than 6 months. In general, people are limited to 6 months with the same employer. However, when we're looking at areas such as hotels, restaurants, franchises, and farms, employers can sort of transition them across their various locations for longer than 6 months. And then critical sectors such as agriculture, food processing, health, aged disability care, childcare, tourism, or hospitality, people are also exempt from that 6-month limitation as well.
Thanks, George. Just a quick mention. North Stradbroke Island, which is in the Redlands, it's classed as the in this category. So if in hospitality tourism, if a worker on that visa, that holiday visa, does 88 days on North Stradbroke Island, they're then eligible for a second year, third year, etc. So I think it's the only one is the North Stradbroke Island that fits that criteria in the Redlands.
Great point. Yeah, that's right, Kate. Exactly. So it helps support employees on the island to access workers in that sector. Thanks. Okay, so now we'll look at how people do stay permanently. There's three primary ways people can gain permanent residence in Australia. Firstly, they can be selected by the Australian government and be invited to apply for a permanent visa. That allows them to live and work anywhere in Australia. And again, they're directly invited by the federal government based on their skills, qualifications, and human capital attributes, such as English, education, age, work experience, etc. Secondly, state and territory governments do also have a role. So our team in Migration Queensland, we can nominate people to apply for a skilled visa that aligns to what Queensland specifically needs. And that recognises a difference between jurisdictions. For example, Queensland's economy might be quite different to Tasmania's. So similarly, we invite candidates and we nominate them based on their qualifications, what they're working in, and work experience, etc. So there's no employer involvement in those visas that the government invites people to apply for. However, employers do have a critical role in the migration system. So employer-sponsored visas, they enable employers to sponsor workers for positions they're trying to recruit for, but they can't find suitable local Australian workers. So when we look at skilled migration to Queensland as a whole, we can see employer sponsorship is really critical. And given the tight labour market, it has been, at historic highs in the past couple of years. So that 482 visa, that's the principal visa that employers sort of utilise. It's a temporary visa. That means it's uncapped, whereas the government visas, they have a cap or a ceiling. The 482 visa is uncapped, meaning employers can sponsor people as they need, essentially. Now, the visa can be granted for up to 4 years, and then migrants can qualify for permanent residency if nominated by their employer after 2 years. So that's when the cap does apply, the permanent stage. It doesn't mean that people would be turned away. It might mean that they might need to wait a bit longer for the visa to be granted. But as long as they meet the requirements after 2 years of sponsored employment, they can apply for permanent residency. So in terms of what is involved in sponsoring a migrant worker, we do have a fact sheet, which I'll provide to Kate to distribute along with the slides afterwards. And that sort of details each of the components and links people to the key information. But at a high level, the key things or the key parts of the process you need to know are that there's a process to firstly become an approved sponsor, and that involves things like demonstrating that you're legally established, you're operating, you have no adverse information or findings against you, and you have had a commitment to employing or seeking to employ local workers. You then have to show the position you're recruiting for is genuine, so it has to be full-time and aligned to your business's activities. And you must be offering conditions equivalent to what Australian workers would receive for the job. Then you must demonstrate that you have tried to recruit. So you've run job ads, you've had, probably had candidates apply, but no one's been suitable. Or if things are very dire, perhaps you didn't even have any candidates apply. But just demonstrating you've undertaken that labour market testing. And then you have to nominate an eligible skilled migrant worker to apply for the visa. Key requirement, I mentioned employment conditions equivalent to Australian workers. There is a salary floor for sponsoring a migrant worker. So that's designed to ensure that skilled migrants that come to Australia, recognising they don't have the same connections, networks, they haven't got access to things like Medicare when they hold a temporary visa, for example. So the minimum salary is 76. It's actually just been indexed up to $79,000 roughly, or the annual salary market rate, whichever's higher. So just conscious to keep that in mind. And there are some fees involved as well, which you should be aware of and which we'll detail in the fact sheet. In terms of seeking advice, we do encourage employers to seek advice, especially when they're first sort of looking into engaging in the migration system. You can go to the Office of the Migration Registrations Authority website and search for registered migration agent. You can also see if there's been any action taken against them, disciplinary action, to make sure that they're of good standing. Lawyers can also practice migration law. So the Queensland Law Society also offers a mechanism to find a lawyer. And then finally, visa entitlement verification online, I mentioned earlier. The Home Affairs website enables you to log in and check a job applicant's visa conditions, for example. So with that, I'll just wrap up quickly and hand over to Suze. Thank you.
Well, thanks, George. We'll just get our volume sorted out here. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for having me along today. It's a pleasure to be here. My name's Susan and I'm the Senior Talent and Employability Officer at Study Queensland.
Sorry, Susan, just 1 sec. It's still catching up. The visuals are catching up. It's now got your slides, but it's got a unusual box in front of your slide. Does anyone else see that unusual box? Or oh no, sorry, I think it's just the design element. Apologies, I think we're good to go.
Okay, all right. You can still hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Well, I'm really delighted to take part in today's webinar, especially because I'm a Redlands resident myself. So it's even more meaningful for me. Sorry, I think I just dropped out there. But
Sorry,
even
two things. Susan, I think your screen sharing dropped out, and also if you're able to switch across to your microphone, because otherwise we just keep seeing George, not yourself, on the side of the presentation.
Okay, is it possible for you to share my PDF, please?
Yes, yep, we'll do.
Thank you.
Just 1 second, sorry, everybody.
While we're setting that up, I can just run through the introduction. So if you didn't capture it before, hello. My name is Suze. I'm from Study Queensland. I'm Senior Talent and Employability Officer. And I was so delighted to be invited along today because I'm a Redlands resident myself. So it becomes even more meaningful for me to take part in this conversation. And in today's presentation, I'd like to introduce you to Study Queensland and discuss some of the top employer concerns when it comes to hiring international students and graduates. Thank you, Kate, if you don't mind going to the next slide, thank you. I'll be sharing information which addresses these concerns and highlights the benefits of hiring international students and graduates, and then also introduce Study Queensland's Talent Ed program, which is the employability program that I lead here, and how you can be involved and access talent at no cost to your organisation. And last, I've been working on a resource for employers. It's not ready quite yet, but I'll give you an insight into it, and then Kate will be able to share it when it's available. Thanks, Kate. I'll take the next slide. So George has already introduced Trade and Investment Queensland, and Study Queensland is the International Education and Training Unit within TIQ, and we lead the Queensland Government's International Education Training Strategy by promoting Queensland as a study destination, supporting the student experience and facilitating export outcomes, as well as providing policy and market intelligence to government and the education sector. So my role within Study Queensland sits in the support the student experience side, and I lead an employability program that supports both industry as well as international students and graduates. And I'll talk more about that program later on. I'll take next slide. Thank you, Kate. One of the first research initiatives that I coordinated in my role here was in collaboration with Business Chamber Queensland, where we listened to the employers on their top concerns about hiring international students and graduates. I thought this was a really wise decision. If I'm looking at helping industry connect with international talent, I wanted to know what their concerns were. And I thought I'd share it with you. Their top 5 concerns were visa sponsorship, and we've just heard some great news from George, especially around that temporary graduate visa, where there is no cost associated, and international graduates have full work rights for the duration of that visa. Concerns around English language proficiency, fear to invest in onboarding the candidate for international students in case they return home unexpectedly. Why consider an international graduate if domestic talent is available, and also uncertainty about accommodating a diverse workforce. So for those of you on the call, if you want to drop a comment or anything into the chat, if you've heard any of those concerns before, that would be really great. Or if there's others not on this list, I'd also really like to know that as well. So in a moment, I'm going to talk through each of these concerns. But first, if we jump to the next slide, Kate, I wanted to share with you the process an international student goes through to study in Australia, as I think understanding this process can actually allay some of the employer concerns. So to study in Australia, international students first submit an application to an education provider for the course that they wish to study, making sure that they meet the academic and the English language requirements. International students are required to study full-time, unlike domestic students who have the flexibility to choose part-time study if they wish. Next, international students need to pay their course deposit and start their visa application process, which has a cost associated with it, with the Australian government, and by providing a confirmation of enrolment document. And then the next step is to supply a certificate of results from an approved English language test. And as George was saying earlier, now the requirement for an international student is an IELTS 6.5 or equivalent, which is university level English language. And there are only certain English test providers that are approved, and this means that their language capability has already been assessed before entering Australia. The visa application then asks a series of questions to meet the genuine student requirement, and these include details around the student's current circumstances, including family, community, employment, and economic circumstances, why the student chose their course in Australia as a study destination, and how they'll benefit from studying that chosen course. The student then needs to evidence that they have a minimum of $29,000 and $710. It's a government indexed amount as a financial guarantee that they'll be able to cover financial costs of living and their study. They then purchase overseas student health cover insurance to pay for medical and hospital care while studying in Australia, prescription medications, and provide ambulance cover in case of emergency. And if this insurance is not purchased, their visa application will be refused. Proof of a health examination to ensure that the student is in good health is then required before the character requirement section, where information is provided about their character and past conduct. And in some cases, a police check is also required depending on the course that they're studying. And then finally, they submit their application through the federal government's platform. And I wanted to ask, was anyone aware of that process previously? Feel free. I can see Abel nodding. Yes.
No, not at
Christina,
all.
did you have a question? Or you've heard of the process before?
Yeah, I worked at Griffith Uni as their postgraduate student equity officer.
Yeah.
So I'm aware of the process, but I'm also aware of the immense difficulties that the students encounter. So I can probably add to what this means for employers as far as, more compassion and more empathy and understanding of what they're going through. Whilst they've met all those conditions, it is still a difficult journey for them.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you were able to contribute that lived experience as well. The reason that I wanted to share that administrative list with you all is exactly for that reason, so that it really demonstrates that international students are incredibly resilient to go through this process. This is federal government application portals, which aren't easy, even when English is your first language, and this is in a second language. So international students, they have the ability to follow processes, obviously. That's a very complex process to be able to follow through, and the language capability to understand well enough to be able to follow that process. They also have to demonstrate that they want to be here and they meet that genuine student requirement. And it also demonstrates that they're willing to go out of their comfort zone to go through this process and follow through with moving to a new country, away from their family, away from their support network, and to set up a new life from scratch. And the processes don't stop there after they arrive. Then they have to continue to be resilient as they set up things like a mobile phone number and a tax file number. And all of this is finding their feet in a brand new environment, and often without any personal contacts or family support. So it shows that they can be really outcome driven and incredibly courageous and absolutely resilient. And it also shows that international students that have been vetted by the federal government just to be here. So the students that we do have here, we feel are the best of the best to have gone through that process and met the requirements. So the question that I have, and thank you so much, Nasima, for adding your personal experience and also your work experience of interacting with international students as well. The question that I have for employers is, aren't these the qualities that you would want in a candidate if you were considering taking on a new employee? Someone who can follow processes, someone who's resilient, someone who's got problem solving, someone who can adapt to new environments, someone who can really get on and get the job done, mostly on their own with very little help. I know that if I was an employer and having been on selection panels previously, these are some of the skills that aren't really listed on a resume or in a career history, but gee, they make a difference to the employee and the quality of candidate that you get. And with all of that in mind, going back to those top five employer concerns that I mentioned before, I hope that going through this process actually addresses some of those concerns. So from the visa application process, we can see that the English proficiency has been demonstrated before entering the country. And also, I think we can all agree that there's a difference between formal English and conversational English as well. And I had a really interesting conversation not too long ago with Sandra Elhu, who's the CEO of Settlement Council of Australia. And she said that English language skills are easier to acquire and probably a lot more quickly than a lot of other skills. She went on to say, I know if I was taking on a new candidate and they didn't have something like problem solving or they didn't have empathy, that is an enormous undertaking to be able to expect that someone can develop those skills. So she was like, English language, needing to improve that a little bit, I would take that any day of the week, because that's a skill that is a lot easier to learn than some of the other skills required for work. The next concern was around visa sponsorship, but as George has already mentioned, there are student and postgraduate visa types that allow for employment without the employer to sponsor or to incur any financial costs. So this creates an invisible pipeline that actually benefits organizations. You can employ a student while they're on their student visa. When they move on to the temporary graduate visa, you can continue employing them. And you can have, as George said, different lengths of time, but we're talking about years here that you can actually test out a candidate and make sure that you're happy with the quality of their work and if they're a right fit for your organization. And being able to have that timeline, should you then need to be at that sponsorship stage, you've already evidenced that candidate that they can do the job well and they're a good fit for your organization. The fourth concern was around the fear of investing time into onboarding and training an international graduate for them to unexpectedly return to their home country. But I can bust this myth. There's a fabulous research company called McCrindle, and they provided some data last year that Gen Z is anticipated to have 17 or more career transitions in their work life, and Gen Alpha are predicted to have even more than that. So this means that domestic graduates are likely to stay in their first role for an average of 12 to 18 months. But international graduate visas, as we've seen from George's slides, that they have generally a minimum of 2 years on their temporary graduate visa. And certainly in my experience over the last decade of working with international students, I've seen that they have an immense sense of loyalty to the first employer who gives them the first opportunity in the country. So with their visa length longer than the average length of time that a domestic graduate would stay in their first role, I think you're very likely to have that international graduate on board longer than perhaps a domestic one. The next concern was around not needing to look at international graduates when domestic graduates are available, but this isn't always true, especially in a climate of workforce shortages. The former Commissioner of Jobs and Skills Australia, Professor Barney Glover, he said that employers need to find a way to tap into the breadth of the Australian labour market to reduce shortages. And so that really encourages employers to look to the international graduate talent pool, as employers who recognise and leverage the potential of this talent pool can meet their workforce needs and even develop a competitive advantage in their business landscape. And that brings me to the last concern of not knowing how to accommodate diversity in the organisation. And international students and graduates, they really bring diverse skills and experience, cultures, languages, and global connections to enrich workplace environments. I know George and I are so blessed to work at Trade and Investment Queensland, which is the most internationally diverse government agency in Queensland State Government. I wouldn't have it any other way. It makes it really just a much more rich work environment to work in. So learning how to increase diversity and inclusion is an organisational benefit to your existing staff. And if we go to the next slide, as an employer, if you are interested in taking the next step, our friends at Business Chamber Queensland, they offer a free Workforce Evolve program, which you can access via the QR code on the screen. And this program helps you plan your recruitment strategy and workforce needs that includes hiring skilled international talent. And if a program feels like a bit too much to start with, that's okay. Take some baby steps. If we go to the next slide, Kate, our federal friends at the Department of Education and Workplace Relations, they've collated some tips and strategies so that you can begin to recruit culturally and linguistically diverse staff. And they have a series called Hiring Outside of the Box that you can find on their website as well, which is really fun. On the next slide, I'd also like to invite you to engage with Study Queensland's industry engagement and employability program that I lead. It's built across 3 pillars: education, engagement, and experience. So the program aims to build capability of industry, understanding the value of locally educated international talent and how to hire temporary visa holders, as well as build student capability of transferable employability skills such as communication, problem solving, and teamwork. In the engagement pillar, we offer networking events between industry and international talent. We've had plenty of hires come from those events previously, which has been wonderful. And in the experience pillar, we offer innovation challenges where teams of multidisciplinary students work to solve real-world industry challenges. And this provides you with a great opportunity to meet emerging international talent while they also develop their local experience for their resume. So with the engagement and the experience pillars involving industry and employers, I'd love to take a deeper dive on those and just give you a couple of cool stats. The program has sustained a 100% industry recommendation rating for over 2 years, and I'm so proud of that. I came from QUT previously. My program had a 96% rating, and I remember thinking that was pretty good. I don't think I'm going to do any better than that. But 100% rating over the last 2 years. We've got a lot of happy industry and employers who have connected through the program. They're very pleased with the talent that we've connected them with, and we really welcome you to join the program. So you can reach out to me after today's webinar. And just finally, on the last slide, I'm working on a resource for employers with international talent. So a great way that you can start if you think, you know what, I'm not quite ready to hire an international student, that's okay. There's plenty of work integrated learning experience programs at education providers, both across higher education and vocational education providers. This resource that I'm developing, I'm literally weeks away from publishing it, and I was really sad I couldn't get it for today's webinar, but that's okay, we're close. This focuses just on the higher education sector, but it collates all of the universities in Queensland and lets you know the different range of work integrated learning programs that they have available, the different levels of students, the different types of projects and programs that you can expect them to undertake, and also more importantly, the front door at each institution, because it's a little bit different for each one. So I'll share this with Kate once it's published, and Kate will be able to share it as well. And we hope that it really streamlines research for you and might provide some insight into options that you haven't considered before about how to engage international students. And if we just go to the very last slide, we've got another QR code, another quick little 4 questions. So this just wraps up the end of George and I, our presentations. We'd love to see if this presentation has been useful for you and gives us some feedback on where to go for the future, and also my contact details. So you're welcome to connect with me. And thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Susan. That was really informative. Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Yep, great. Just double checking. Fantastic. I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll hand over to, or actually I should double check. Are you right to share from your screen? And is it Abel going next or Saba?
Hopefully Saba can talk if she can. If not, then I'll be leading.
Great. Saba, do you want me to present your slides here? Great. Okay, perfect. I'll just get that into full screen mode. Apologies for 1 second. I might not be able to get it to go. Oops, having trouble with the shrinking button. Pop that down the bottom there. There we go. Great. Saba, are you there? Might need to unmute. I'll just double check.
I don't think she's there, so I might take the lead and do the presentation. I think she's traveling, so
Yes, yeah, no worries. Thank you. Thanks very much. Great to have you join us. I really appreciate it. And I'll let you introduce yourself formally.
yeah, thank you.
Bill, if you'd like me to help you with this, I'm very happy to do that.
Yes, if you can
Sure.
start from, the whole, I'm new to the organization,
Sure.
so Nasima can do the
Sure.
overview of the organization, then I can start more specifically into the the employment sector.
Sure, no problem at all. So I'm Nasima, and I'm the Community Development and Engagement Officer in charge of the Redlands area. That's my catchment. I'm in Sabah's team, so I'll just step in here. This is very impromptu, so please forgive my shortcomings here.
Thank you so much, Nasima.
That's okay, no problem at all. Sabah, the Community Relations Manager, and Abil, Refugee and Disability Community Advocate. SSI have commenced the Inclusive Employment Australia program in the last few months. Abil will be able to go into that more in detail. We are Australia's largest migration and refugee settlement organisation with 58,000 clients and 59 programs nationwide. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary. This beautiful organisation was started by a Greek lady by the name of Violet in Sydney, who started it from her kitchen table that many years ago to support her own community, and it has grown prolifically. We now have a presence in every state and in Southeast Asia as well. So just a bit of an overview about SSI and 59 programs, you can imagine. I will not even go into what we do, but we support people on every level, mostly from second year up until citizenship if there's a requirement for that. The most support is given in the first 5 years because by then people have connected with community or they have family and they've really found a lot of their settlement issues reconciled. But we also find that after 5 years, the deeper things like the mental health issues and all of that still emerge, and that's when normally the support would have dropped up after 5 years, and that's when they need the ongoing support. So therefore we have extended that to citizenship. So that just gives you a bit of an overview. Thank you, Abil. You can take over.
No, you can continue, but
Okay.
can you go to page 3? I think
Sure.
she'll and then
Yep.
and Nasima can go a little bit into that.
Okay.
There we go.
So that beautiful artwork that you saw just flashing by, that's our Reconciliation Action Plan, the new one for this year with SSI and Violet, our CEO, the same woman I was referring to earlier. She's very committed to working with First Nations people. And this is the artwork for our new Reconciliation Action Plan. Thank you, Kate.
Beautiful.
Okay, yes, here we go. SSI has 59 programs, which include SETS and youth and the diversity training, SRSS, inclusive employment. WESP is the Women's Employment Service, a Multicultural Women's Employment Service, and emergency relief, which includes disaster management.
Thank you, Nasima.
You're welcome.
All right, so my name is Abel. I actually used to work for this company prior to them changing to SSI when they were Access. So and then in the community engagement sector, then I've went into the employment. So now I'm back doing employment as well. So here we are. And it has grown a lot in the past. So SETS, I think like Nasima said, and the YT kind of work together. It's the second tier of support where when the new arrival, which is called the humanitarian settlement, which is the HSP, and then the SETS is the next stage until citizenship. What I wanted to talk more about was the employment, because this is more about what the employment brings to the employers within Queensland or Australian government. So we have a lot of employers who have never worked with a diverse background workers, and hence we created a diversity training programs where we can go into employers or other service providers to give them that training and show them what to expect of people who are from a diverse background. So, and then what traumas and other things that they came with, and then how they deal with that, and then their journey. So basically, all the resilience that they've got. So that is more into the whole aspect of SSI. With the IEA and the WESP, they go hand in hand. I know the WESP is the new program that came after IEA, which is more to do with the upskilling, where where SSI has taken the lead to support migrants in upskilling or recognizing of prior qualification or experiences back home, because Australia has never taken the initiative to recognize those skills when they come as humanitarian, and a lot of those, I think 45% of migrants that come to Australia are underutilized, and all those skills are wasted. Back home they could have been a doctors or engineers and other profession, but when they come to Australia, because of where they came from and how the journey, and they lost their certificates or they're not transferable within the Australian qualification, then they are driving Ubers or doing cleaning and things like that. So to us, that shows it's a big waste of resources that we have. So I think talking to employers like this, and thank you for giving us the opportunity, because that puts a light to a lot of migrants who could be working and could be utilized for the Australian growth. And hence, and that's why SSI has gone and tendered for IEA program, and also is tendering for the new workforce as well, to support the migrants and get into the right places. I think everybody knows what the IEA is. If you're not, it's more to do with the disability employment, and we are refugee specific, so we do look at visa qualifications and things like that. So so there is a lot of restrictions to how we can help, but it is to do with refugee specific. If employers wanted to find out what to expect, or they have a question, we are more than happy to support them in any ways, and show them how we can support them, or give them information about what a certain group of their employees could they expect, like let's say, for example, if they employ someone from the Afghanistan community, okay, what do they expect, what's the norm in that culture, and how to support them. So I think Kate, I've sent you an email about I had a case study in I've actually got two. One is I just went to Toowoomba, and they've employed a group of Iranians from the minority group, and what happened was, and then they employed another person from a different group, and they were not working together because they have a baggage from back home and things like that. So, and the employer wanted to employ a diverse background or from the cold background, but they didn't know what was going on, and their work environment was, was affected. So we met at this training, and they asked us the questions. We said, yes, this is the issue because of these, the political and all that kind of stuff. So we gave them what the issue is and how to solve it. So this is what we can bring to the table to a lot of employers. We can give them our experiences with working with refugees for the past 25 years. And also what barriers and how to support them to continue. Because yes, English is one of the biggest barriers that they have, but they have other skills, like you were saying. English is, you can learn it at work, and that lived experience is more worth more than you speaking English. So emergency relief is basically supporting people who are vulnerable, and but there are regions as well. Thank you. I think that's all we have. But if you have any issues with a lot of backgrounds and with if you want to know more about the refugee backgrounds and what to expect, then we are more than happy to answer any questions that you have. We can share our details. I think, Nasima, you've got your hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I've put some information in the chat. So where Abil was speaking about the 47% of migrants coming in being underutilized. SSI is involved, very, very proactive in lobbying and advocating for Activate Australia. So you can have a look at the two links there, and please join us in trying to get the skills recognized for the communities, so that the need to get people from overseas is not as great, because we have such an immense resource right here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to reduce this chat. Apologies. And I will copy out the links so that I can share that with everybody. Thank you. That's fantastic. And may I just ask a quick question? I believe SSI has really strong connections with a large migrant workforce or community here in the Redlands. How does an employer connect through to, say, a Redlands based migrant potential candidate? Can they come directly to SSI, or what does that process look like?
It would be really great if you contacted me first, and I can then refer you on to our employment teams. That would be the best way to do it.
Brilliant.
So
We'll definitely be
should I
sharing.
copy my details here? Yeah.
Yes,
Certainly.
and we'll share that with others both after this, but also as part of the resource for this webinar for anyone who's looking at it at a later date.
No problem. I'll just pop my details into the chat. Just give me a second.
Thank you, Naseema. That's fantastic.
You're most welcome.
I think, sorry, is this part of your presentation, or have we headed across to
That was the information the link with
the link,
where
yeah.
the 44% came from, and
Brilliant.
what SSI is doing. Also, there's I think over 130 organizations coming together to support this.
Yeah, we really need to lobby to get skills recognized. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I'll make sure that all gets shared.
Excellent. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. I might now we're going to jump very quickly. I'm just looking at the time. It's 1:04, so we've got about 25 minutes left. I might quickly jump to a short Slido activity that we're going to do. Slido is just an interactive online sort of activity, so just bear with me for a second whilst I get to the right place. Back to here. And no, 1 second. I've got to find the right page and the right link. Here we go. Okay, so apologies if you're able to please just grab a phone and use the QR code on the left. It'll bring up an interactive Slido activity that will come up with the results on the screen. So that's the first question. The question is, has your business ever employed someone who was born overseas or working in Australia on a visa? So I'm going to put in an answer. Mine is no, I have not. Oh, good. We've got 67% saying yes, and they're currently, and 33 no. Give it one more second for anyone who hasn't quite logged in yet. Great. We might move to the next question. Which talent pathway would you be most interested in exploring following today's webinar? We've got skilled migrants already living locally, international students, international graduates, employing sponsored skilled workers. Great, we've got some skilled migrant already living locally. And that one, I'll just shrink this so we can see. 100% so far for the first, skilled migrants living locally. I think it's a great, as you were saying, untapped cohort, that we've got all these people here that perhaps haven't yet been fully utilized or given opportunities, often due to a lack of understanding, which I think today in this webinar will go a long way to help debunk, as Susan was talking about earlier. All right, so we'll move to the next question. What is the biggest barrier to recruiting through a migrant workforce pathway for your business? Understanding the visa and work rights, compliance or employer obligations, or finding suitable candidates, or not knowing where to start? Okay, so we've got a bit of a mixture for this one, but the primary one is not knowing where to start. So hopefully today, with these connections, links, and a bit of an explanation on the different ways to get started and who to talk to about different cohorts, whether they're international students coming in, whether they're skilled migration temporary visas, or whether they're local, already got their full work rights living here locally. Hopefully today will really help people with that whole not knowing where to start element, and then finding the candidates. Well, Nasima, thank you for offering to be a direct Redlands related contact to help connect through to finding candidates. So thank you. I think that today will really assist with those two elements. Next question is, rank these supports from most to least helpful for your business. Migration Queensland advice, Study Queensland talent programs, which Susan talked about today, SSI's recruitment and onboarding support, regional jobs committee introductions. It's a little tricky to answer these questions without going through using the services, but just from your understanding of what's on offer from today's presentations. Great, thank you. So, SSI recruitment and onboarding. Nasima, you might get busy. Excellent. And then Study Queensland talent pools and Migration Queensland advice. So thank you. It seems like all of them are going to be very beneficial. And I think down below, I can't actually see the answer. Hopefully we've got a few people also looking for introductions, and we can continue to do that. So I think that's the end. Or how confident do you feel about exploring migrant talent as part of your workforce strategy? Great, we're getting some 4s and 5s. I think today really does help make it clear that it's not as elusive or secretive or scary as perhaps what people without today's webinar maybe know if you haven't already gone through the process. So I think this will do a lot to help support that debunking myths. And next one, what one word comes to mind when you think about hiring migrant or international talent? This will come up as a word cloud. So just put a one word or a couple of words. Okay, so we've got culture, diversity equals excellence, opportunity, all fantastic. Culture, diverse, diversity and inclusion. 2 more responses coming. Rich, love that. Excellent. So yeah, really, really great visual diagram of what hiring from a migrant community as part of your workforce strategy. And just wanted to highlight, whilst we're on that point, what Susan shared with the Workforce Evolve program is a fantastic resource I've actually completed the course myself, and it really highlights the need to have a very well thought out workforce plan. And part of your plan, if you haven't already got it in there for migrant community, part of your plan could, if not should, include migrant talent, and how are you accessing that as an opportunity. So I think that's the end. I'll just double check of the poll. Yes, I think it is. And we'll click back to full screen. And it's now time for all of you online to literally ask questions of the panelists. Anything you'd like, feel free to unmute yourself and ask anyone your burning questions.
I think Nasima's got a hand up there again, Kate.
Thank you. She's a good talker, this one. I just wanted to say that, Kate, I think it would be really great if these webinars, this particular one, was put on more regularly, but, because there are people that can't attend, and even if the recording could be circulated, just to get the information out as far and wide as possible. I think that's really helpful. The other thing I wanted to mention is just speaking about spouse visas. So I know that at the Redlands, there's somebody who owns a business. And so his spouse is a registered nurse, but her qualifications are not known to the department, and therefore she hasn't had her skills recognized. She would love to work as a registered nurse, and we know how much a registered nurse is needed. So there's just a perfect example of a resource waiting to be tapped in, and she doesn't know how to go about it. And I'm sure there's opportunities waiting there for her.
Yes,
And
absolutely. And it's a huge need for
yes,
nursing, both enrolled and registered nursing. And I'm
yes.
definitely, for that particular Naseem, I'm very keen to talk to you about connecting her in with pathways that we've already been working on. So I'll do that after.
Perfect. That's fantastic. I wanted to ask also, please, on one of the slides earlier, and I can't remember whose slide it was. I think it could have been George's slide. It said there that the Australian government identifies certain people to invite them to apply for permanent visas. Could you please tell me how does the government identify those individuals?
Sure, thank you. In relation to the previous point around the nurse and the skills being recognised, I did see a question in the chat. Do you do skills assessments? I'm assuming does Queensland government do skills assessments? So no, if you mean skills assessments for the purpose of applying for a skilled visa for migration to Australia, the answer is no. And certain industry groups do that. So, for example, Engineers Australia do skills assessments for engineers. I think it's ANMAC do skills assessments for nurses. However, the Queensland Government Department of Trade, Employment and Training, they do overseas qualifications recognition. So people can apply to them and say, hey, I've got this qualification overseas, and they'll assess it and say, yes, that's the Australian equivalent of a bachelor degree, for example. So I can include that information in the slides and fact sheets, which I pass on to Kate after this. So back to your question around how governments select skilled migrants to invite for a skilled visa. The Australian government utilises a points test. So the points test considers what they call human capital attributes. They include age, education level, work experience, English language ability. There's some other factors such as studying in Australia, if you have a partner who's skilled as well. And in addition to the points test, there is an occupation list, and they select people with occupations on that list. So the Australian government, they're focused on health, education, and construction at the moment are their priorities. The list is broader than that, but they're basically across the board. I think most jurisdictions also have a focus on those areas. With Queensland government, we don't focus as much on the points test. We look at it in terms of the occupations that Queensland needs. As I mentioned, construction is the highest priority, then health, education, and a range of industries. It's really broad. It's over 200 occupations, or it was last financial year. So manufacturing, tourism, agriculture, for example, included as well, along with others, energy as well. But we're focused on if people are onshore, and the vast majority of that program is dedicated to onshore people, we look to see, have they got a job aligned to their skills? So that's that earlier, that the underutilization, we're really conscious of that. So we want to make sure that we're picking people who've already got the outcome in line with their skills and qualifications, as they should, because in an area of shortage, and their skills are being used. So great. Queensland, wants to nominate you for a visa. And we limit the overseas nominations only to the areas of most critical need, and that's larger construction. So construction and trades workers, we can't find enough migrants already in Australia, so we sort of look to focus the overseas nominations on those as well. So yeah, it's basically occupation based for Queensland, and if in the state, it's are their skills already being utilised in the economy? If so, great. That's the focus.
So does that mean that somebody has to apply for a visa to start with in order for you to be able to identify them?
Yeah, so many of those graduates, and I mentioned a graduate visa, there are thousands, even tens of thousands of graduates in Queensland, full-time work rights on that visa. and lots of them do get jobs. We're encouraging industry employees to make sure that they consider them generally, so we think that they are still underutilized and under-considered, but there is still more than enough that do get jobs. So that's sort of, a focus. It doesn't have to be a graduate visa. It could be a working holiday visa, for example. It could be another temporary visa. But yeah, there is already a cohort in the state on a temporary visa that gets a good outcome, and that puts them makes them very competitive for a government invitation. But as I mentioned, the government invitations, they're capped and they're quite limited. The temporary employer-sponsored visa, that's uncapped. So there's also the dual role there for employers where they can't, they might have employed the graduate, for example, at no extra cost, no obligation, just like hiring any other worker. But hey, that's in a field like, health, engineering, IT, science, the list goes on. It's an area where it's hard to find local people for the job. So after they've employed them for a few months, a year, maybe even 2 years, the visa expiry is approaching, the employer might decide, oh, look, it's worth my time sponsoring them, because losing them is a bigger cost than sponsoring them to keep them.
Thank you, George. That's been really informative for me. Thank you for that.
George, while you're still talking and whether Susan's still there was a question in the chat from Marcel. I don't know if you can see that about, from an employer's perspective, which skills and career fields are currently most demanded in Redlands, and what courses or qualifications would prepare international students to meet these workforce needs. So if you can see that there.
Yeah, saw that one. Thank you. Susan, I was just mentioning, Redlands specifically, we'd imagine health tourism might be important, but happy to defer to Kate or anyone with any thoughts on that specific region. Queensland, from the Queensland government perspective, across the state, particularly conscious of the Olympics build and the record infrastructure pipeline that we have beyond the Olympics as well. So trades workers, construction-related occupations, that infrastructure sort of sucking workers out of other areas. So construction's right up there, followed by health, enormous growing demand for health workers from an aging population. Education, teaching in regional areas particularly is right up there. And then the government does have sort of industry blueprints or plans for agribusiness and tourism. So from a state perspective, there's some of the higher priorities amongst just areas where there is genuine need as well, which we know covers many areas like motor mechanics, for example. But yeah, Redlands specifically don't have anything off the top of my head, just conscious of the straight broker.
We can add a little bit there. So Redlands specific, our biggest workforce gaps is in health and care sector, which includes aged care and disability care, followed by construction. And then we do have some other quite high sort of workforce gap situations, but they're the two biggest ones that align, as you just said, very closely with the broader region and state and the whole of Australia. And just in terms of creative solutions, DETIT, which is Department of Trade, Training, Employment, etc., who funds our regional jobs committee, they have some quite targeted programs where, for example, they've been working in Logan area with a mosque community to go into the mosque and to look at all of the community in there who have got significant construction skills and background overseas, and to do a proper, fully formed recognition of prior learning. And they've been effectively getting people who have migrated from skilled trade backgrounds overseas through a rapid recognition of their current knowledge and filling in the gaps with any competencies that they need to fill in a very quick manner. So we can try and encourage and get more recognised qualified tradespeople from that migrant community to fill the gaps. They're already here, they're already living here, integrated, but they haven't had their previous experience recognised. So there is some creative solutions that are actually going on and getting some really good outcomes, in addition to all the other things that you've already talked about.
Suze might have something to respond to the second part of that question around international students.
Yeah, and thanks, Kate, for the example of Department of Trade, Employment and Training. But I think with the, in terms of what courses or qualifications would best prepare international students, I guess I just wanted to say that if the international students are studying here, in Australia, they are studying an Australian qualification. And so as part of that, most university courses now have what's called a work integrated learning component. This could be an internship or some other way of industry engagement. That gives them that real world experience as part of their degree. And that's one of the ways that students are prepared to enter a workforce. And obviously they're encouraged to gather other experiences, whether that's through volunteering or through casual or part-time employment while they're studying as well. So I guess in terms of preparation courses, it should be embedded into their Australian qualification that they're already studying. But then to your point, Kate, there are those for skilled migrants who haven't studied in Australia previously. I think that's where we're starting to see more examples of, as you said, that rapid course recognition and sort of upskilling to meet Australian standards and needs. But what I was mentioning before about Study Queensland's Talent Link resource, that compiles all of the work integrated learning programs from universities in Queensland. So it's a way that you can have a look through that and go, oh, okay, so QUT have this particular program that would suit my organization, seems to meet my needs. I'll reach out to them and talk about students, either domestic or international, that I can engage through that work integrated learning program so that you can have them in your organization as part of their course of study, and they gain that experience and you gain their skills and experience for the time that they're with you.
Thank you, Susan.
Right. Thanks, Susan. I'm just conscious of time. We've got some great information in the chat there also from Isabella. Thank you for sharing that. And then last question before we wrap up, can anyone help Brittany with her question there that she's posted in the chat?
Do you have the question on hand? Sorry, Des, I'm just looking for it.
Oh, you can't see. She runs a cleaning. Well, Brittany, would you like to talk, or would you like to read me to
We've
read it
got
out?
George who's here and he's able to answer that question.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, Brittany, if you Google core skills occupation list, that's the list of occupations eligible for the 482 visa, which employers can use to sponsor people. Look, it is focused on jobs. They call them skill levels 1 to 3. So jobs that require either certificate 4 or 3 qualification all the way up to a bachelor's or higher. So those types of jobs potentially below that skill level that don't require those qualifications aren't eligible. So probably just conscious of that. So yeah, if the role is clean, it's not going to be eligible. You can verify what is eligible on the core skills occupation list. What options to employ a cleaner through a visa pathway? Okay. Well, you might not find, I don't think there'll be a dedicated skilled visa pathway to hire people at that lower skill level role. You know, we know that there are cohorts that have visas that have work rights that do work in those positions. But in terms of sponsorship or permanent residency, I don't think it's going to be eligible. But yeah, core skills occupation list is the one to look at to see what is eligible.
Thank you. And just also adding to that, your comment earlier, Nasima, about spouses of people who are here on skilled migration visas. The spouses, as far as I understand, have full work rights in Australia, and potentially that could be a connection Brittany might look at, is not someone who's on a skilled migration visa themselves, but their spouse.
Yep.
I think one more comment there we've got, haven't we? There's a hand raised, Asman.
That's me.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think this one is more to Kate. I think you've said something about getting someone their qualification recognized or their skills. In terms of, there's a lot of countries that don't believe in certificates. They're more into inheriting their skills from their parents and, you know, their fathers and, you know, carpentry and all that kind of stuff. So they don't meet Australian standard because they don't have the paper, but they have the skills. They've been working for about 10 years, 20 years. How can we get involved in those initiatives that you were talking about? That's
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
one. Sorry, I've got another one as well. Sorry. And when you're trying to employ another person from a humanitarian visas, they have a ME account, a ME card, and that is 100 point to get them onboarded. A lot of employers don't tend not to use those, and they don't recognize it, but it is 100 point of identification. So just putting that out. Thank you.
Sure. So the recognition for prior learning, there's a very formal system for it. There's trials and pilots, particularly for construction, because it is such a major need. So I can definitely put you in touch with the people in the department who are leading that trial. So very happy to do that. The 100 point question, I'm not sure I fully understand. Could you just explain a little bit more what it is and
There's a when a refugee comes to Australia, they don't have identification. They've only got their
sure.
ME account, ME card, and that ME card is given by the Department of Home Affairs. So it
Okay.
is to say that this person is who they say they are. So that's the
Sure.
only form of identification they've got. Sometimes they don't have their bank account. Sometimes they don't have their driver's license. So I'm just trying to say to employers that, if you're employing someone from a refugee background and they're new to the country, make sure that is valid ID. So because I've worked in a lot of onboarding with employers, and they've always rejected that, saying we don't know what this is. So I'm just trying to let
Sure,
everybody
build
know.
awareness.
Great.
No,
Well, that'll
thank
be
you.
captured in the recording as well. So that's great. That's great. Well, thank you, everybody. I have to say, so in my day job, I'm a HR advisor for clients, small, medium businesses here local in the Redlands. And I think today was brilliant. Like some of that information that you've shared are things, if I put my HR hat on, are things that employers that I know ask questions about, and how do we answer that? And where can we find information there? So I've learned a lot today. I've been really excited about everything that you've shared, because it'll help me better educate the employers that I work with in this space, and then also for Kate and I for the work that we do connecting with all the employers in the region. I think probably I was one of the presenters on the early webinars, but this probably has to be our best one so far in terms of content and what we're able to share. And I think, as Nasima said, we should do it again and find other ways of getting the information out. So thank you everybody for participating. Thank you for those of you that joined us, and I think Kate will send out the information of all those links and everything that everyone's shared. So if you do want to continue to connect with people from today, or the information, that'll all be available for you. But I think was spot on, and thank you, Kate, for organising everybody and pulling it all together. It's been great. Just conscious, we said
100% agree.
1:30, so we'll let everyone get on with their day. But thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you greatly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
See you all.
Thank you.
Bye.